Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today it is time to talk statistics. So this is a video that I both adore and loathe making every single year because I really love statistics, you know? I don't know what it is, but anything to do with numbers, statistics, I'm all about it. So this video is going to be my mid-year stats check-in. We're going to talk about how I'm doing compared to the goals that I set out at the beginning of 2020. And I've also cross-analyzed these against my statistics from this point last year so we can see any increases, decreases, and maybe figure out what's going on there depending on what they are. So before we get into this very exciting video, I would just like to mention that this video has once again been very kindly sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning platform that provides classes in a multitude of topics, literally anything that you could think of, you can find a class for it on Skillshare. They cover a lot of artistic topics such as illustration and photography, but they also have a ton of business and practical classes as well in things like marketing. Speaking of marketing, the class that I would like to recommend to you guys today is called Finding Instagram Success, Build an Account That People Care About by Taylor Loran. Now, it is no secret, if you guys follow me on any social media, you will notice that my Instagram account is dead. I very rarely update on Instagram, and that is because that Instagram was my personal account. It was actually my most used social media, but now that I have YouTube and Twitter, Instagram has kind of fallen by the wayside. If you've been following my vlogs, you will also know that I am full-time candles and YouTube now, so I need to revive my business Instagram account for the candles, but it's been so long since I've used Instagram frequently, I've forgotten about everything like the algorithm and the best way to write posts and things like that, and how to have an engaging Instagram account. And this class so far has given me a few tips on that. It does have a whole section dedicated to the algorithm, which was just really informative in general. So if you guys are bookstagrammers, if you want to start a bookstagram account, if you have an Instagram account with your business, or even if you just want to build a little bit of a personal influencer account, then I would definitely recommend that you check this class out because Taylor Loran is actually a professional content marketer, so she knows what she's talking about. As well as being extremely informative, useful, and accessible, Skillshare is also extremely affordable as well. If you take out an annual subscription, it works out at less than $10 per month. However, I do know that having a subscription-based service can be a little bit of a commitment. So if you would like to dip your toes in, see what Skillshare has to offer, see if it's right for you before you commit to a subscription, I'm happy to let you guys know that I do have a link in my description box, and the first 1,000 people who click it will receive a completely free 60-day free trial, which will give you unlimited access to all of Skillshare's classes, so you can try out everything that they have to offer for a 60-day period without paying a penny. Now, Skillshare has proven useful to me in a variety of areas, so I would definitely recommend that you guys take me up on that offer and try Skillshare out, and you may learn something new. So moving into the stats, we are going to be starting off simple with my Goodreads goal. Now, every single year I set my Goodreads goal to one more book than I read the year previously. In 2019, I landed on dead on 100 books. So this year, my Goodreads goal is 101. Now, Goodreads currently has me at 53 books at this point in the year so far. However, there are a couple of compendiums that I have in my currently reading on Goodreads where I have been marking the books separately on my spreadsheet. So my spreadsheet currently has me at 56 books. Now, I thought that this was amazing because I only just hit 100 books last year. So I thought that being over 50 at the midpoint of the year would mean that my actual books read at the end of the year is going to be a lot higher. However, I'm currently only at 2 more books than I'd read at the same point last year. So maybe I'm only going to read 100 again. Hopefully I'll get 101 to beat my Goodreads goal. But yeah, I was surprised at that because I'm not doing as well as I thought. Interestingly enough, on this topic, I'm currently at 20,281 pages read so far. Once again, thought I was doing amazing. I'm actually minus 18 pages on this time last year, and I've been reading a whole ton of big books as well, so I don't know what's happening here. Obviously 20,000 is still good. 40,000 for the end of the year will be amazing because I don't think I've actually hit 40,000 yet, but I did find it interesting that I'm actually not doing as well as I thought in comparison to last year. For the types of books I've read, I guess I've currently read 40 books in a series, 13 standalones and 3 rereads. Now the only really interesting thing about this is I'm not rereading as much as I have in previous years, and the reason for that is that all of my favorite series at the moment are currently concluded. So usually when a very highly anticipated release for me is coming out in that year, I will spend the year rereading all the books up to that release, and at the moment I have absolutely nothing I need to be rereading, although I do occasionally reread just for pleasure because I do enjoy, obviously, rereading my favorite books. Series is a little bit higher than it was at this point last year. I do predominantly read books in series, so this one is always my highest percentage, and yeah, anything between like 65 and 75% is kind of usual for me. Onto my books per month. Now it's very obvious here that my best reading month so far has been April, and in April I participated in the Elle's Magical Readathon. I did really well. I read 12 books and that was actually my best reading month ever. However, coming out of April I have had a little bit of a reading slump, so May and June weren't great. June I thought was actually going to be my worst month of the year so far. However, I did manage to pull it back a bit, and I think that with page count my worst month of the year so far is actually February, which makes sense because it's the shortest month. My star ratings are actually quite interesting this year because the majority of my ratings are going to 4 stars, so I have 22 4-star books. Now very recently my 3 stars have also overtaken my 5 stars, so we have 15 3 stars and 14 5-star ratings. Now last year 5-star was my dominant rating. I had more 5 stars than any other rating, and the reason for this particular change is that I have implemented G from Book Roast's core pile rating scheme in 2020. I'll put a link to her video down below so that you guys can see what it is, but it pretty much breaks a book down into 7 different categories, and you give each category a rating out of 10. So like you have characters, plot, intrigue, etc., and then it gives you a numerical rating out of 10 that translates into the 5-star rating system. So using this I'm definitely getting a lot more 4 stars, and that is the reason why I wanted to use it, because I felt like at the end of 2019 I'd given a whole ton of books 5 stars, and a lot of them I couldn't even remember that much about because I wasn't actually that into them, and I wanted to have a combination of a critical rating system and also something that reflects personal taste, which core pile does, because there is one whole category just on how much you enjoyed a book. The demographics at this point in the year are very interesting. Now the most notable thing about this is that the amount of adult books I've read is currently only 33%, and I've actually read more young adult at 42%. Now I looked at my statistics at this point last year and I've actually read 9 less adult books, and I thought that was because I was reading more young adult. However, I've only actually read 3 more young adult than I had at this point last year. So the discrepancy that we have with this is that I'm reading new adult, and I have been reading quite a bit of new adult romance. Last year I did not read a single new adult book throughout the entirety of the year. This year I'm really into romance, as you guys know. I've also been reading urban fantasy romance, a lot of which has been folded into the new adult category. So if we combine new adult and adult, we will see that I'm actually reading 45% that's in the more adult genre, and then if we combine young adult and middle grade, we have around 52% that is in the younger audience. But I think the main thing with this now is that I'm not only reading young adult and adult like I was, I've also read a significant amount of new adult and middle grade this year. Okay, so onto the formats. Now this is quite different from last year as a whole. I'm actually currently down 15% on physical books, and my ebooks are up because I have actually been enjoying ebooks recently. I find them a lot easier to read sometimes if I'm feeling slumpy, and as we will find out when we get to the publishing wheel, I've actually been reading quite a few self-published books, and they are much cheaper to buy on ebook, and they're actually really inexpensive on ebook as well. So with those I have been leaning more towards ebook. As well as that, I'm actually reading arcs this year. Now last year I don't think I read a single arc, and that is because by the time you're watching this video I will be a few days away from my 3-year booktube birthday, and I have only just started to receive arcs. Like I've been asking for them for 3 years. Now I'm asking for them a lot less because I never got them previously, but I'm actually able to get arcs from publishers now. Almost 20k, and I finally got there. So the difference in the formats is also representative of the fact that I've been reading arcs. Technically they would come under physical books, but I don't know. I wanted to somewhere track how many arcs I was receiving and reading. The genre wheel, I'm not going to go through this entire thing because it is quite a lot. I always wanted wanted to be at 50% fantasy, but last year I was, I think, on 43%. So we have had a 10% increase and we're currently on 53% fantasy, which is great because that's exactly where I want it. However, it is worth noting that within that fantasy there is quite a bit of fantasy romance, and while I do not usually track subgenres too much, I don't really break things down that much, I just throw all of the fantasy into fantasy. I think when we get to next year I'm going to make fantasy romance a separate genre because I am reading quite a lot of that now and I would like to know exactly how much. That being said, another change in this genre wheel is that 10% of the books that I've read have been romance, and I did not read a single romance last year, and this has also impacted the amount of contemporary I'm reading because I'm actually down 5% contemporary on this time last year. Okay, so sources. These are the places where I'm acquiring the books from that I'm reading. Now, the thing that has been bothering me with this wheel is that I am down 13% on last year on the amount of books I'm reading from my own TBR. Originally, I thought that this was because I was prioritizing books that I've received in 2020, which is the hold section of this pie chart. But what I've discovered when I was analyzing these statistics is that there is less than a 1% difference in the amount of hold books I've read this year compared to last year. The real difference here is something that we've already touched upon, and that is that I'm actually receiving ARCs. So 14% of the books that I've received this year were either sent to me by the publisher or by the author in the case of self-published books. So it's interesting because I didn't realize until I was making this video that that was such a significant amount, and as well as that, I've been trying to keep prioritizing my backlist, thinking that I was reading an uneven proportion of books that I've bought this year, when it turns out that it isn't that. It is the introduction of receiving ARCs that has skewed this. The books that I've been putting on my TBR compared to the amount that I've actually read, there has been 52 books on my TBR so far this year and I have read 45 of them. However, if you take into account that I've added my July TBR onto this and we are currently at the beginning of July, the real statistic, I guess, would be that there is 46 books on my TBR and I've read 45. There's one that I didn't quite finish that I'm currently reading, and then, as I said, my July TBR is on here as well. For this statistic, I do only add to my TBR spreadsheet my Bookopoly books and if I have a read-along book for the month. So generally you can expect that I will always kind of be almost complete in this one because I am obligated to read the books I have to read for read-alongs and also my Bookopoly books every single month. So moving on to the representation in books. So this is the types of representation I am seeing in the books that I'm reading because I really want to make sure that I'm reading a diverse range of characters and a diverse range of situations. So the very good thing about this is that the percentage of books that I have read this year that have no representation in them at all, so it's all straight white able-bodied characters, is down 15%, and there's a whole ton more diversity in the books that I'm reading. Bear in mind that when I'm reading books with a range of representation, the majority of it I can't speak for, so I am pretty much just marking down the representation that's present. I'm not on voices for a whole lot, to be honest, so yeah, I can't say whether the representation is good, but at least it's there, which is a step in the right direction. I 100% need to read more own voices books. I definitely need to prioritize reading from marginalized authors because it's not something I look into. It has occurred to me this year that that is definitely something that I should be doing, and I have already started making steps towards that. At the beginning of 2020, two things happened. The first thing was that I made a goal saying that I wanted to read at least half of the books that were gifted to me in 2019, and the second thing is that I also closed my wish list because I had too many books and I wasn't getting to them as fast as I wanted to, so I closed my wish list for the, I was going to say for the time being, but pretty much for the foreseeable future at the moment, and I want to be reading through these. So I made a graph. This is a new edition for 2020 that tracked the amount of books over the last 2 years I have received from you guys that have been gifted via my Amazon wishlist. My target for the year, which was 34 books, as I received 68 books last year, and also tracked every time I read a book that was gifted to me. So I'm currently on 19. At this point in the year I should be on 17, so I'm a little bit above that. I want to thank you guys just here for your generosity in sending me things. I'm very appreciative. Some of my favorite books of the year guys so far are ones that have been gifted to me by you guys, and I definitely have a very wide range, and a wider range than I had originally before I opened my Amazon wish list of books to choose from. So thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart for sending me anything. I'm just trying to work through them at the minute, and I am actually doing that, so I'm really happy with my progress, and I am currently ahead of target. And then lastly, we're moving into the more author section of my spreadsheet. So every single book I read, I track whether it is an author I've read from before, a new to me author, or a debut. So I'm currently plus 12% from where I was last year on authors that I'm reading I have read from previously. Now this is a really difficult one, or it was a difficult one for me to kind of see where I wanted to be at, because for example with the genres, I know I want to be at 50% fantasy, but it is hard for me to gauge like kind of where I want to be on this one, because on the one hand I want to be exploring new authors and introducing new people's work into my life. Secondly, I want to be supporting debuts wherever I can. And thirdly, I need to be continuing with the books that I have. So I do tend to collect books by author. An example is I have at least one book in every series that Maggie Stiefvater has written, and I've only read The Wolves of Mercy Falls. At this moment, with how my collection is and how my reading is, I think that I want the known section to be the majority of this pie chart, because that means that I am continuously going back to authors that I've read from before and continuing with them. Because if you guys ask me who my favorite author is right in this minute, I will tell you Sarah J Maas and I will tell you J Kristoff, and I cannot think of a single other author that would work for this, because for an author to be my favorite, they have to have written more than one book or series, depending on whether they're standalone or series writers, that I have really loved. And it's only very recently that I've actually been returning to those authors that I've read from previously that I loved and continuing on with their work. So I'm very happy that we have a 12% increase on this at this point in the year. And then the last thing that we have, the very last statistic, is the publisher wheel. Now I don't generally go through this very much, because this is literally just every single publisher that I've read a book from this year. So as you can see from the chart, the two biggest pieces of pie are the bright blue, which is Harper Voyager, who are the fantasy imprint of HarperCollins, and also Simon & Schuster. So those are the traditional, or the big five publishing houses that I have been reading from the most. But the thing that I really want to draw attention to here, that I'm really happy about, is that the biggest piece of pie on this graph by far represents 17.5%, and that is self-published. I have read a whole ton of self-published books this year. I have more on my TBR. I've just actually purchased a couple as well, and I am loving self-published books at the moment. Before 2020, I had never in my life read a single one, and this year I have read 10. I'm finding with self-published work that I'm getting a diverse range of fiction. There are resources out there who can tell you authors that are self-published that have really good books, like Jenna Moreci, I hear excellent things about, and she is a self-published author. KJ Sutton, self-published. I've read 5 of her books this year, I think, some that she co-authored with Jesse Elliott. There's also Laura Thalassa, Danielle L. Jensen, Jennifer L. Armentrout, and especially if you are a fantasy romance reader or a new adult reader or an urban fantasy reader, I feel like you're going to find a lot of gems with self-published authors, because that is what I have been heading into throughout 2020, and let me tell you, I have not been disappointed. I would probably say that the ratio of books that I've loved by self-published authors is currently bigger than the ratio from any other publishing house on this wheel. I'm probably just selecting good ones and some quite popular ones, but yeah, I'm loving self-published books at the minute. And aside from just supporting indie authors is great, when you buy a self-published book, if it's a paperback, you get like a really heavy, really floppy paperback, and they're just like, they're the supreme format of books to read. Okay, so that is about it for my mid-year statistics check-in. There are a couple of areas that I would like to improve, but overall I think I'm very happy with the progress that I've been making so far this year. So I think that that is about it for this video. I just want to extend a huge thank you to Skillshare once again for sponsoring this video. And if you guys would like your 60-day free trial, then the link is in my description box. While we're here, if you do want to track your own statistics but you don't have a spreadsheet and you don't know how to make them, you can find classes on Skillshare on how to make spreadsheets, how to work out all the formulas, how to understand all of the formulas. If that is something that you don't know how to do and you would like to get into, I have actually been using Skillshare for some help with formulas actually, because I'm good at learning things by myself like that, where I can see mathematics and patterns, but there were a few things that I've been struggling with, and Skillshare Skillshare has also helped me with that as well. But that is about it for this video, guys. So please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you want to. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you're will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.